Hello, my name is Robert Emmons. I am a documentary filmmaker and professor of filmmaking and media production at Rutgers University, Camden. It is my pleasure to participate and present alternate reality games as experiential learning at the 2023 RUOnline conference. This experience will provide a brief description and history of alternate reality games, as well as how I use an ARG as an experiential learning device in my hybrid Choose Your Own Adventure course. Lastly, I will suggest possible ARG concepts that hopefully inspire use in your classes. An alternate reality game, also referred to as an ARG, is an interactive, networked narrative that uses the real world as a platform and employs transmedia storytelling to deliver a story that is collaboratively driven by creators and intense player involvement. It is important to understand, though, that ARGs are games that do not acknowledge that they are games. Their steadfast position is, this is not a game. Players interact directly with the game, solve plot-based challenges and puzzles, and collaborate as a community to analyze the story and coordinate real-life and online activities. Two critical concepts to ARGs, as mentioned in the definition, are networked narrative and transmedia storytelling. A networked narrative is distributed across a network of interconnected authors, story points, or discrete threads. It is non-linear. The story materializes as its plot points are discovered and experienced. In 2006, Sean Stacey, the founder of the website Unfiction, an early site on alternate reality games, wrote, "The best way to define the genre was not to define it." He called ARGs chaotic fictions wherein games contained three axes: rule set, authorship, and coherence. Stacey writes, "I define chaotic fiction as a fictional construct that begins with a set of rules, uses those rules to run its scenario through an organic computer comprised of audience and author, and ends with a finite body of work that was not predetermined. That is to say, though the authors, those who set the rules and started the production of the fiction in motion, may have been able to predict with some measure of certainty what they might end up with upon completion of the project, since they do not have complete control during production of every element of creation, they could not say with absolute certainty beforehand exactly what would be created by the process." If you're still not clear on chaotic fiction, maybe this will help.
I'm still not clear on chaos.
It simply deals with predictability in complex systems.
So you may still be asking yourself, what exactly is an ARG? To that, I say, an ARG
Or not.
an ARG.
That is the question.
That is the question.
That is the question.
That is the question.
While there are common elements in ARGs, each one has its own unique design and player experience. Perhaps a better way to understand an ARG is knowing what it's not. Understanding postmodernism only works when we understand modernism, right? ARGs are not strictly or social learning. They are not computer games. Computer games are not integrated with the real world around you. ARGs are not geocaching or scavenger hunts. While they include a variety of challenge activities and goals, those must be within the context of the story. They are not just a hunt for a list of predetermined items. They are not live-action role-playing. ARG players do not play as a character in the game. They play as themselves. Transmodality is the defining characteristic for ARGs. Alternate reality gaming is an experience that takes place across multiple platforms, formats, and locations. There are elements of e-learning, computer games, geocaching, scavenger hunts, live-action role-playing, and social learning. But an alternate reality game is not one of those activities exclusively. An ARG can be what you need it to be to fit your audience, your goals, your culture, and your creativity. They are flexible gameplay environments that not only can be custom designed, but can be adjusted during gameplay to react to the way in which players play the game. They can be a rich part of online, hybrid, and in-class learning. There are recurring concepts and key terms that are helpful to know when studying and creating ARGs. Rabbit hole and trailhead marks the first media artifact, a website, contact, puzzle, and it draws in the players. Trail, a reference index of sites, puzzles, characters, and information found during the game. Puppet Master or PM, an individual or group involved in the designing and or running of an ARG. Collective Detective, a team of players that work together. The Curtain, the separation between the Puppet Master and the players. Lurker, someone who follows an ARG without directly participating. Cryptography, a method of protecting communications through the writing and solving of codes. An elementary example of cryptography is the A1Z26 cipher. It is a simple direct substitution cipher. Each alphabet letter is replaced by its number in the alphabet. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, so on, and vice versa, and any combination therein. Steganography. Steganography is concealing a message within another medium. Popular examples include hiding data in an image, or hiding an image or message in an audio file, which can be revealed by observing the audio file's frequency. Popular musician, composer, and DJ Aphex Twin has included spectral frequency images in his work, along with using the darknet as a tool to virally promote his projects. I use spectral frequency in my Choose Your Own Adventure class. In the online course site, an audio file was embedded. The file, when played, is a 4-second abstract flurry of noise.
What is it you are looking for?
The unusual placement and sound of the file was meant to spur the students to explore its nature and makeup further. When, and if they did, by revealing the audio file's spectral frequency, a message emerged, which revealed the next step in solving the research assignment. I should mention here, and I'll get into it more later, activities and puzzles like this are meant to stimulate excitement and play in the research process. Red herring, an intentional or unintentional distraction that diverts players from the path to a solution and sends them on a wild tangent. This is not a game. Belief that one of the main goals of the ARG is to deny and disguise the fact that it is a game. This is not a game.
This is not a game. This is not a game.
Goodbye, Dinah. Goodbye.
When an individual or group decides on creating an ARG, while there should be plenty of room for improvisation, spontaneity, discovery, and adjustment, there is much planning that is required before the game's launch. A design plan requires the author to define the ARG's objectives and create a preliminary schedule which includes the go-live date, create a design document or ARG Bible to keep track of the game's many layers, paths, parts, puzzles, goals, and characters. Within the complicated layers of the game, it must be noted, story is central. ARGs are storytelling as archaeology. The story is non-linear. Players dig up and assemble the narrative, determining its meaning as they go. The ARG authors must always keep the player experience at the forefront when designing. Players shouldn't be pushed into anything, but instead pulled by its secrecy and mystery. They should be lured. Games should use players' lives and the world around them as a platform. Clues should be embedded in everyday life. Again, this is collaborative storytelling. The game responds and changes based on the player's actions, so be prepared to improvise and adjust the game as it evolves. In a way, an ARG is a living game. The history of ARGs is a slightly murky one, as the nature of the game is one of obfuscation. I am not attempting to present a full history here, nor could I list the number of ARGs in recent or current existence. What I aim to do is present a brief history of the foundational and innovative examples that shaped the form. The first time I implemented an ARG element into one of my classes was in the spring of 2022. The course was called Choose Your Own Adventure. And, as the title suggests, the course was a history, critique, and writing course on interactive fiction. Our ARG began with this part of the lecture, a history of ARGs. Then, the class was interrupted by a phone call. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll come to that later. Let's move on. Perhaps the earliest example of the idea of a game that operated in the real world is mentioned as a concept in G.K. Chesterton's 1903 story, The Tremendous Adventures of Major Brown, in the collection The Club of Queer Trades. In the story, a company called the Adventure and Romance Agency Limited creates real-world adventures for its clients.
The Adventure and Romance Society has been started to meet a great modern desire. On every side, in conversation and in literature, we hear of the desire for a larger theatre of events, for something to waylay us and lead us splendidly astray. Now the man who feels this desire for a varied life pays a yearly or a quarterly sum to the Adventure and Romance Agency. In return, the Adventure and Romance Agency undertakes to surround him with startling and weird events. As a man is leaving his front door, an excited sweep approaches him and assures him of a plot against his life. We give him these visions, but we give him exercise at the same time. The necessity of leaping from wall to wall, of fighting strange gentlemen, of running down long streets from pursuers, all healthy and pleasant exercise. We give him back his childhood, that godlike time when we can act stories, be our own heroes, and at the same instant dance and dream.
In this passage, it's easy to imagine the Adventure and Romance Agency Limited as the first designers of an ARG. While The Tremendous Adventures of Major Brown contained a fictionalized concept for a proto-ARG, the first launched ARG, containing the essential components of a transmodal network narrative, is often cited as Ong's Hat, also known as the Incunabula Papers. Ong's Hat was created by Joseph Matheny and formally launched around 1993, with roots of the project beginning in the 80s. It began using internet bulletin board systems, Xerox mail art networks, and early zines to distribute story elements, and went on to incorporate radio, television, CD-ROMs, and DVDs in its dissemination. The Ong's Hat narrative is told in the form of conspiracy theories, and it took on a life of its own, a goal of the game's creators. The game was concluded in 2001. In 1978, an institution called the Moorish Science Ashram was established in the Pine Barrens near Ong's Hat, New Jersey. It was for seekers and scientists interested in alternative thought. Eventually, the Institute for Chaos Studies was founded at the ashram. They built a machine called the Egg, which could travel to an alternate dimension. Another key event in ARG history was the launch of The Beast. Developed by Microsoft to promote Steven Spielberg's AI, artificial intelligence, the film's poster and other promotional materials initiated clues. The ARG ran for 3 months. Fictional character Janine Sala uncovers a network of murders, including her friend Evan Chan and other artificially intelligent beings. The game incorporated over 40 websites created by Warner Brothers and released clues embedded in trailers, ads, posters, faxes, email and telephone messages, all along with live promotional events. The game originally contained 666 files, so the game masters gave it the nickname, The Beast. That title became the official name used by fans and was played by over 3 million people. A core group of players, calling themselves Cloudmakers, worked closely throughout the game to find its conclusion.
And I will leave you a trail of crumbs.
Inspired by The Beast, several of its dedicated players came together to create a new ARG. The game revolved around the secret activities of a company called Ganmed Biotechnical and its work toward developing a highly controversial genetic therapy to halt the aging process. The company conducted secret human trials performed on the inhabitants of Moreland, West Virginia. The game's website was activated in February of 2002. The term alternate reality gaming was first used by Sean Stacy, one of the moderators of the Lockjaw player community. Sean Stacy and Steve Peters, another of the moderators, created the two websites that have become the central hub of the ARG community, ARGN and Unfiction, which was the website quoted at the start of this presentation. Lastly, I want to mention the ARG ECFA, as it utilizes many of the defining characteristics and aesthetic qualities of contemporary ARGs, including lo-fi, low-tech, and vintage visuals. They appear to be poorly constructed, intentionally abstract, and scary. In fact, many contemporary ARGs are often classified as creepypastas. Creepypastas are internet horror stories. The term is a portmanteau of creepy and copypastas, the latter itself being an internet term for repeatedly copied and pasted stories virally disseminated across the web. Other popular ARGs I recommend you explore are This House Has People in It, Marble Hornets, Cicada 3301, Ben Drowned, I Love Bees, and Local 58. When I originally gave this lecture to my class in March of 2022, the presentation was interrupted by a phone call I received on my smartphone. I stepped out to take the call, and moments later I informed them that there was an urgent matter requiring my immediate attention. I darted out of class and left my computer behind, with the lecture's last slide still projected on the classroom screen. It's important to note that when I began class, before I gave my lecture on the history of ARGs, I spent some time talking about the statue in front of our classroom's building. It is one of several statues around the world of Peter Pan, sculpted by Sir George Frampton in 1912. Fortunately, with that set up and the ARG lecture fresh in their minds, they knew something was afoot. After a few moments, as a class, they exited the building and went to search the statue. Hidden within the statue was an envelope containing a letter with a single QR code. The game had begun. When I left the class, I secretly hid down the hall so I could spy their efforts in discovering the first breadcrumb. The QR code led to a website which required information that could only be discovered by calling a phone number. The phone number, if you recall, was hidden in the spectral frequency of an audio file that I provided earlier in the class. When the students called the number, they were presented with the following voicemail message.
You've reached Gannett Limited. We turn nothing into something. Get our contact passcode by searching for Gannett Limited. We turn nothing into something on the video sharing website YouTube. Be sure to put quotes around "we turn nothing into something" to ensure a successful search.
When they followed the message's instructions, a YouTube video provided the clue the previous website required. First, however, the students would need to solve the encryption. They made quick work of that by applying the simple alphabet cipher I covered in the History of ARGs lecture. By entering the decrypted word into the website, they were given two final tasks. 1. Watch a short documentary on Johnson Park and the Peter Pan statue hosted on YouTube by the Scribe Documentary Film Center of Philadelphia. And secondly, they were led to a piece of archival material in the library's special collections. With those last two bits of information, they were ready to respond to a prompt provided in a subsequent class on the interactivity of public art and spaces and how to use them as a storytelling device.
Will it be you? Will your family be the first to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? The first to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot. He follows the commands you put on the screen to help you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate zapper and play games like Duck Hunt? The first to play Super Mario Brothers, a journey through spellbinding adventures. The Nintendo Entertainment System, where video technology is more than a game.
Lecturing on ARGs was always in the plan for my Choose Your Own Adventure class. But it was only a few weeks before the start of the semester, when I was looking for more ways to make the course experiential using dynamic group work, that it occurred to me. Don't just talk about ARGs. Have the students participate in an ARG-style assignment related to that week's module. The course is writing intensive and includes both creative and critical writing, and culminates with each student writing their own piece of interactive fiction using the software Twine. From the beginning of the semester, I expressed the necessity for research in both critical and creative pursuits, and the ARG exercise was meant to turn that technique into a kind of transmodal archaeology. The goal of the ARG was to spur students to discover the history and creation of the unique sculpture that resides outside of a building they walk past daily, but never give a second glance to. So, in planting clues in websites, videos, audio clips, and archival material, students collaborated with each other in a new dynamic way. I suggest that ARGs can be used even further in this way. Find ways to integrate real-world practices from your academic areas with the educational lessons and material you provide. Promote collaborative group work and present problem-solving assignments that require critical and creative thinking. The wealth of material that our libraries and special collections contain are excellent resources for the types of challenges and activities ARGs provide. The physical world around your campus also presents a rich playground for your game.
There has been a number of insightful research articles published on the educational impact of incorporating ARGs into the classroom. I suggest reviewing the following. In 2010, the Association for Computing Machinery's International Conference on Supporting Group Work published session proceedings titled Alternate Reality Games and Group Work. The article focuses on ARGs as a study of group work dynamics and groupware systems, and concluded that ARGs represent a unique form of group collaboration with useful assets. In Education Science's 2020 article, Helping Nemo, Using Augmented Reality and Alternate Reality Games in the Context of Universal Design for Learning, the authors concluded, our personal belief is that combining the multimodal affordances of alternate reality games and augmented reality in a learning environment that builds and enacts on the principles of inclusive education has the potential to provide all students with accessible, participatory, and transformative learning experiences. Lastly, I strongly encourage you to read New Media and Society's 2014 article, Lessons Down a Rabbit Hole: Alternate Reality Gaming in the Classroom. The authors argue that alternate reality games can be used to reinforce classroom knowledge by encouraging collective learning practices and focusing on new media literacy skills. And by appropriating this emerging format in classroom spaces, students learn concepts such as new media literacies, the values of safe failure and social learning, while gaining the tools for interactive storytelling. Indeed, incorporating ARGs into the classroom requires much work up front from the instructor, as you must reverse write your breadcrumb trail and plant clues and challenges for your students to discover and solve. However, from my experience, the effort is worth the end result, as the students are excited about the challenge and the chance to see coursework material in a new and dynamic way. They are challenged beyond the classroom, and not just with a reading assignment, but with a research assignment which requires the use of body and mind. ARGs can be applied to Kolb's cycle of experiential learning, which includes concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation, and applies the core elements of experiential learning: reflection, critical analysis and synthesis, opportunities for students to take initiative, make decisions, and be accountable for the results, opportunities for students to engage intellectually, creatively, emotionally, socially, or physically, and the possibility to learn from natural consequences, mistakes, and successes. ARG assignments are suited for fully online, hybrid, and in-person classes, as the nature of the game is transmodal. Students can work collaboratively and independently using the resources of the digital and natural world. Start small. Issue an assignment that requires critical and creative thinking to solve a problem or riddle. Challenge students to use what they've learned in class, but also challenge them to synthesize that information with the workings of the world outside the classroom. Allow them to work collaboratively. The goal is to use critical and creative thinking to explore your subject, no matter the discipline. In my opinion, we abandon play-based learning far too early. I suppose experiential learning picks up those reins in a way. But remember, this is not a game.
Experiential.